Hello, Popoki here, and welcome back to another build video. Today, I am going over the best Prismatic Hunter build in Destiny 2. I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot, but I am going to guarantee you today that this is indeed the best Hunter build in Destiny 2. And I'm going to prove it very simply. So before I get into the actual build itself, I'm going to plug my Discord here for a sec. All of the builds you see in my videos and more are all sitting in my Discord with write-ups. And if you have any questions about the builds, or you need an extra link, or they get updated, day by day, that's where you're going to find them. So if you want all that and more, check out the link in the description, join up in my Discord, and I am always there to answer your questions. Now on to the build. This build seems pretty simple from the outside. On the inside, it's not that simple. In gameplay, it is kind of simple. So immediately you're going to be like, gifted conviction on Prismatic, but Arc just got buffed. Why wouldn't you do that? It's a bit weird. Okay, so I'm just going to start off with like the armor mods, the basic stuff. So nothing is interesting here. Everything is pretty stock standard except for the bolstering, focusing, impact induction. Now, you can take off impact induction, put in a loader mod or a firepower and stuff, but you probably won't have the mod capacity to actually slot it. Because a big part of this build, if you see here on the bottom right, is that for our stats, we want 50 mobility exactly and as much recovery as we can put in, as well as tier 10 resilience and tier 10 discipline. Now, this is a rarity. All right, hunters usually maximize mobility, maximize resilience, tier 10 discipline like everyone else, and then their recovery stat is usually pretty low because they don't have that many mods to go around. So this build is going to give you the passive survivability of a Warlock or Titan, and then give you a little bit more on top. So for our exotic of choice, we are running Gifted Conviction. What does it do? You probably already know, but in case you didn't, whenever you ascend or use Tempest Strike, it throws a bunch of, I think like 3 jolting little balls that go around, and it jolts enemies, and procs the jolt explosion when it hits a jolted enemy, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the important part is that if you're within, I think, 10, 15 meters of an enemy and you jolt them, it will give you 1 stack up to 3 or 4 of resist. And this usually just stays at a nice 50% damage resist. Yep, you heard me right. 50%. That's a lot. That's half damage, right? But we're going to go a step further. So let's look into the actual class itself. Now, this looks pretty basic, but I will assure you it is and isn't at the same time. Starting off with the super. Now, I have Golden Gun equipped, but you can use any super here. It is not a super dependent build in the slightest. Usually, it's put on Golden Gun for damage, swap to Celestial, use Silence and Squall Silk Strike if you are doing ad clear, there's no boss. Shadow Shot if you're using rockets and no one else has a debuff going on, and never use Storm's Edge. So we're going to be using Gambler's Dodge, with the new buffed Ascension is going to proc on our Ascension. So when we ascend, it procs Gambler's Dodge, gives us back our melee, and for our melee, very importantly, we have the Threaded Spike. Now, you'd be like, oh, why don't you use Withering Blades or, Combination Blow or something like that? Sever, all right? Sever. People usually don't use Threaded Spike for the sever. They use it for the whole, like, every enemy gets hit, big damage, catch it back, get some energy. Nah, we are specifically using the Threaded Spike for its severing capabilities, and I will get into that later. Next up is Grapple. This is integral. No other grenade but this is good for this build because it is integral, and I'll get to that. For our aspects, we're running Stylish Executioner, which is the best sustain that Prismatic Hunter has. Every single ability we use is going to make us invisible with a short cooldown. You can use this with like Tanasha's Mastery, with Chill Clip, and yeah, it's very good. Next up is Ascension. Now, Ascension got a pretty hefty passive buff in Heresy. So number 1, Amplified gives you 15% damage resist now, and gives you Manticore-like enemies don't really like to shoot you. You get like dodge chance, you know, if you play like other rogues and MMOs. So yeah, that's what that does. Heading over to our fragments, we have Facet of Protection, which is another 10-15% damage reduction when we are within 3 meters of an enemy. Next up, we have Facet of Dawn, which is, you know, you have to have this. Whenever we get hits with Threaded Spike, we get Seconds of Radiant, which allows us to kill anti-barriers. It allows us to deal damage in Transcendence. It allows you, if you're Golden Gun, to do more damage when it's on Celestial. Then we have Facet of Purpose. So when you pick up an orb, which we are going to have, you will get a type of sustain that is chosen by your, you know, preferred super. So I'm on Golden Gun right now, which means I get Restoration. All of these are good, really, except for Arc, because you can get Bolt Charge from other things. So yeah, all of them are good. You need to have Facet of Purpose. Next up is Facet of Hope. This gives you a 60% class ability regeneration rate increase when you have an elemental buff. Light buffs, darkness buffs, whatever, who cares, right? But we're gonna get into this here. So Ascension gives you Amplified, right? Amplified is an elemental buff. What does Ascension use? Your class ability. So just using Ascension procs Hope and gives you a 60% class ability regen the entire time. Now, before Heresy, the only way you could loop Ascension with Amplified is with Marksman's Dodge, where it would have a short enough cooldown, where when you amplify yourself, go in the air with Ascension, wait 15 seconds, you'd get it back, right? So you could be permanently amplified, use Ascension every 15 seconds, and you could never use this with Gambler's Dodge, because the cooldowns were a little bit too long, right? For some reason, I have no idea, in Heresy, this is different. Don't tell anyone about this. So when you use your Ascension, you will get your Gambler's Dodge back in 15 seconds, and you will always have Amplified. This means every 15 seconds, you're going to be proccing Gifted Conviction for the 50% DR, Amplified for the 15% DR and dodge chance, and you're going to be getting your melee back, which means every 15 seconds, you have another Threaded Spike. Which means if you have your dodge, you have 2 free Threaded Spikes. So if you have your dodge up, you can throw your Threaded Spike, dodge up in the air, you have your Threaded Spike back again, wait 15 seconds, you have another spike, you have another Ascension. It's crazy. Every spike and every Ascension is also going to make you invisible. Now, the most important part of the build, which is the weird cursed part of it, is Facet of Awakening. This is extremely important. Facet of Awakening reads as follows. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates a elemental pickup of the matching element or damage type, right? This doesn't seem crazy, right? But it is. For some reason, Facet of Awakening is sometimes breaking the Tangle cooldown, meaning you could throw a Threaded Spike and get 2 Tangles out of nowhere. It's completely random, it's weird, but it works. So what we're using Grapple for is not as a grenade, but as a pure utility tool. We're going to have so many Tangles spawn out of pure nothingness with our Threaded Spike spam because of Ascension and Hope and Gamblers that we're going to have a ton of Tangles to throw and use around with our Grapple to get around the map, deal with adds, get Darkness ability energy, and fly around with your friends. That's it. That's the build. Now, it sounds very simple. It doesn't sound very strong, but, you know, you can see the emblem I'm wearing. I used this build in contest Sunder Doctrine. I also used it to get my solo flawless for Sunder Doctrine. You can see my solo flawless loadouts here. Both use this exact loadout with Celestial swaps. So I can assure you it is a very solid build. It has gotten people who haven't played Hunter in a while to get back on the class because of how good it is. Now, in order to show you how good this is, I can't just show you a Lost Sector. I can't just show you anything because this build is extremely strong and good, and it's a rarity to find any build that can be this strong, especially on Hunter. I am going to be running the dungeon solo flawless again, and then I'm going to clip apart that and show you how the build works like that. I'll see you then. This game sucks, bro.